Welcome to the Impact Nations podcast. My name is Tim. I am your host. And today I am excited to welcome back a friend of the show, Mercy Aiken. Mercy is a peace advocate. She's an author. She's led pilgrimages, and she's now serving with Peace Catalyst International. Mercy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's really great to be here.
So thankful. And I got to say, I should tell our listeners that Mercy's actually filling in kind of very quickly, came in as a favor to me. We had a bit of a software crash, and we've got a really exciting episode that we recorded last week that we will be bringing to you next week because we had a bit of an editing crash on the software, and poor Freeman is working in the background to fix that up. But Mercy was able to step in and join us. And in truth, Mercy, you and I have been trying to make this happen for a few weeks, but you are a very busy lady.
Yeah, I am. I am busy. I've only got a few weeks left in the USA, so I've got a lot going on
Yes,
right now.
you are about to embark on a grand adventure. You're moving to Jordan in just a few
I
weeks.
am. I
Does that
am.
make you a missionary? How do you? What's your new professional title?
That's a really good question. I don't like it when people ask me that. I'm like, what is my professional title? Um, PCI, Peace Catalyst International, is definitely like a mission organization for sure. All of our people that work within the organization, we all raise our funds and we do missionary work, you could say, but within the framework of peacemaking, peace building, justice advocacy, reconciliation, anything along those lines. You'll find us in the United States and overseas doing that type of work from a Christian perspective. But we love to
That's
work
cool.
work with other people of other faiths. We're not like strictly within this strict Christian circle.
Yeah. How many of you are there?
Oh gosh, that's another question. I'm not sure because there's actually some people who volunteer with us. There's some people who are
Hmm.
part-time. There's some people who are full-time. Maybe a few hundred people altogether.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
maybe
large
a
number.
hundred. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the answer is to that
Yeah,
question.
I know at one point you knew you were being called, if you'll allow me to use that information, that phrase, being called to the Middle East. You've served there before in Bethlehem, I know. At one point, I recall you were thinking about Egypt as a possibility,
Mhm.
and Jordan is where you landed. How, I don't know, how did it come about that you decided to pick up and move to Jordan?
Well, as you know, I've spent a lot of my life in the past decade or so living in or coming and going from Israel-Palestine. I've been living in Bethlehem in the Palestinian territories on and off since 2015. But it's getting visas is difficult after I was there when COVID hit. And then, of course, everything that's happened after October 7th. It's not an easy place to try to live right now. So I wanted to put myself adjacent in the vicinity with two neighboring nations. So I was looking at Egypt and Jordan. I eventually settled on Jordan for numerous reasons, but for one thing, it's quite close. And one of the things that I do is lead pilgrimages. So it's much easier to cross from Jordan and just be there to kind of welcome people. We start our pilgrimages in Jordan now, and then we
Mm,
cross into Israel-Palestine. Um, and there's a lot of other, I have friends who are refugees from Gaza who are living in Amman. There's a lot of Palestinians living in Jordan in general. It's a really nice, stable, good place to launch further work and advocacy around Israel-Palestine.
yeah. What are the options right now, just given the tensions in the region and stuff? Are you able to get into West Bank and things like that with relative
Yeah.
ease, like when you're leading a pilgrimage like that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's always our hope and prayer. We make our plans, God laughs, they say. Um, we have a pilgrimage set for May. We had to postpone it. It was originally set last year. This is our first Peace Catalyst, Peace Builders pilgrimage into the Holy Land. And our first one was set for last year, but right before our pilgrimage was to begin, the Israel-Iran war broke out. And I was over there at the time. And so we had to cancel that whole pilgrimage. So we never know what's going to happen, but we really believe um, in the power and the the need really of bringing in people, especially from the West, to come in and actually see what's happening on the ground, to meet local peacemakers, whether Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, to meet people who are suffering, again, whether Palestinian or Israeli, under the situation there, so that people can really see from a human perspective what's happening, what people are going through, with real life examples and experiences, as well as hearing from people who are making a change on the ground. So they can
Yeah.
go home with a greater sense of reality of what's actually happening, and also some points of hope because they've met people who are doing the diligent work on the ground of faithfulness to the Lord. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll speak from the Christian perspective. We also have Muslims and Jews, but people who are faithful, you could say, to the ethics of humanity and justice, reconciliation, and who can still, in spite of everything, envision the possibility that there can still be a better future there for everybody. Will take a lot more work at this point, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility. And so these are the points of light, or the people that we like to connect our groups with.
Yeah. Do you have a really diverse group that come on those pilgrimages, or do you find that the people who are attracted to a pilgrimage that you would lead are already somewhat like-minded and kind of perhaps open-minded to the different reality that they might encounter than perhaps what is advertised?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say a lot of the people that come on these pilgrimages are people who are quite curious. They
Mm.
may be from very diverse backgrounds. Like, we have people coming even from different nations. We have people who are like evangelical, all the way to people who don't practice any faith at all, or maybe they
Yeah.
practice another faith. So in that sense, we're a diverse group. But we tend to mainly be mostly Christians, mostly people from some type of evangelical type of background,
Hmm.
and who are now saying, I don't know if I've really understood what's going on. I want to learn. Or they've already said, I want to understand the situation, maybe more from what Palestinians are experiencing, which is something that has been, for the most part, in the evangelical world, um, pretty much not discussed at all.
Yeah.
Palestinians have been virtually invisible, especially Palestinian Christians. So these are people who want to just continue their learning journey from whatever point they might be on. We even have
Yeah.
some people who it's like their first time to the Holy Land. They've never been
Hmm.
before. They also want to see like some of the holy sites and stuff. But generally, I would say all of our people are those who are really interested in human beings. They value human stories,
Yeah.
and connecting with real humans in real life, the living stones, as we say, more than the dead
Mm.
stones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really uh, unique opportunity to see things that you may not see on a more typical Holy Land tour that you would see
Yes.
advertised on TBN or something like that. But I'm sure you do get some folks that are like, okay, cool, yeah, we want to see the real behind the curtain stuff, but also like, could we go see some of these things too? So do you get a few days of going to see some of the more
Yeah.
typical Holy Land sites?
Yeah, we do that, but usually more in the context of what is happening in this place now as it relates
Mm,
to the situation in the land.
yeah,
So if we go to a site, we will talk about the historic beauty of it, the biblical impact of it, that kind of thing, but we will also talk about why this is important in the current reality right now. What's going on here?
yeah,
In terms of the people who are living in this area, what are they experiencing as it relates to this site? Because archaeological sites can be quite contested in the land.
mm,
Um, there can be settler movements coming in, maybe trying to take the site or claim the site. There can be a lot of other issues that are going on around these
yeah,
sites that a lot of typical pilgrimage groups would never know at all. They wouldn't even have a clue when they
yeah.
go to those sites.
Mm.
So, yeah.
What's
So
one of
our
your
hope.
favorites of those that are on the kind of the classic Holy Land checklist? What's one of your favorites to go to, and maybe bring some of that different perspective and watch as people experience that?
Mm, oh gosh. I mean, I could I could list a lot of places. I think of some of the places that that are most meaningful to me that I like to visit are biblical sites that aren't even necessarily on a typical pilgrimage.
Hmm.
Like I love going to Lazarus's tomb in
Oh,
Al-Izariah. I love
wow.
going to the Class A site is one where there's virtually no contested opinion, like this is the only place where this could be. Jacob's Well is one such site in Nablus. So this is where Jesus would have met the Samaritan woman at the well. And it's the well, like it is the well
Th-
that was
We just
always
know
there.
that, eh? How do we know
Yes,
that? That's mind blowing. That's
because
2,000 years
there's
ago.
not another well. There's not
Ah,
another well in this area.
wow.
Okay, so this is actually where Jesus would have met the Samaritan woman. It's far off the beaten track. Most pilgrimage groups don't go to it because it's in the West Bank in Nablus, which is a city that is often under high tension between the local people, the settlement movement, or whatever. Right across the street from this church is a large refugee camp. Right behind this church is one of the Shechem. It's like one of the oldest um, archaeological sites that's been unearthed. It's just like this intense layer of like so much history in one place. And I particularly love this church because it was rebuilt by this Orthodox priest who really like almost like Saint Francis got the call like Francis built rebuild my church. And that's what this guy did. Like he's brilliant. He designed like the structure for it. He built it. He painted the icons for it. I mean, he raised the money for it. He just did, and he's this old man now, just hanging out there. And there's very few groups that ever come and even see it.
Hmm.
And if you're lucky, as we sometimes are, we will have him lead us down there to the well, splash water on you, like kind of baptize you with it. You know, you can get a drink from it, and share the story of what they have experienced as this very small Christian community living in Nablus, which is traditionally the area where the Samaritans lived. So
Hmm.
it's also quite interesting to visit Samaritans. Um, yeah, there's a lot. There's just layers of fascination coming on these trips. Like whatever point in time you're interested in, there's going to be some rich things to know and
Yeah.
learn about that period of time and so much more to fill in. So I
Wow.
like the juxtaposition of visiting this church. Um, and I don't always do this, but one time we did this. Then we walked across the street with permission from the people who live there into the refugee camp. And we met some of the people who were
Hmm.
living there. And I think that's how I like to bring people to the Holy Land, because I think the question we are always asking is, this is the land that Jesus actually walked around, on his feet with his disciples with him, and how he saw the people of the land, how he looked at them, the things that he noticed, the things that impressed him, the things that grieved him, the things that gave him joy, the things that hurt him and angered him. All of these things are still visible
Yeah.
anywhere you go in the world, of course. But when you're on a pilgrimage like this, it's a really wonderful opportunity to ask the Lord, like, lead me. You're still walking through this land embodied in us now. Like, see through our eyes, feel with our hearts. Let us see and discern and understand the land and the people, the individuals, the way that you see them,
Yeah.
and love the way that you love, and feel the emotions that you feel as you felt then and as you feel now. And so in that sense, it is a pilgrimage. It's a transformative journey.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just finished reading a book by Joash Thomas, "The Justice of Jesus." I don't know if you've read it yet. It's a relatively new
Mm-mm.
book, but he's with International Justice Mission. He's actually going to be a guest on the show in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
When I
cool.
finished his book, I was like, "Please come talk to us about this stuff." But one of the things he talks about is, instead of traditional missions trips, he's casting this idea of vision trips. And that sounds very much like what you're talking about, which is really coming and placing yourself in a place of humility, of just seeking understanding. And how can we
Yes,
better change our mindset so that we
right.
can stand with you in a very real way? Um, I'm guessing that you see as people are, I mean, it sounds like it's the main purpose of your pilgrimages is for people to get a new vision of what is the reality here. But do they walk away with, I don't know, a renewed commitment to standing with the oppressed? What's some of the kind of practical effects that people take away, or actions that they can take after they have gained a new worldview?
That's probably the most important, one of the most important questions of all. To the degree that I think we engage on a trip like this in that posture that you're talking about as a pilgrim. I'm not coming here with the answers. I'm not
Mm,
coming here with foregone conclusions, even necessarily. I'm just here to walk with the Holy Spirit and see whatever it is that you want to show me, Lord. Um, and I think to the degree that people engage with the Holy Spirit in that, they will come home with a sense of maybe what they can do, you know? Um, because the Holy Spirit shows us all, and we are all different. We're built differently. We have different gifts. We have different access. We have different passions. Um, we are a diverse lot. And together, we all have something that we can bring. And what I bring is not going to be the same thing as what somebody else brings. And so, this is why I don't like to tell people there's this cookie cutter answer of what you're supposed to do. I respect people's individual journeys with the Lord.
mm,
I hold that very sacred. And I think
yeah.
that after the pilgrimage, it's a hard thing. I think people want, like, tell me now what I should do, because that's really easy. But there's a place of deeper wrestling with God where the Lord might want to say, yeah, you can, do X, Y, or Z, but the Lord might have something deeper under the surface that requires a little bit more digging and a bit
Yeah.
more wrestling and a bit more sweat to access that treasure. And so I hope, it's my hope and prayer that everyone who comes on such a pilgrimage will go home within that mindset. And I trust the Holy Spirit to speak to people as
Yeah.
to what they might do further.
That's beautiful. These pilgrimages sound amazing. How many do you hope to do in a year, or whatever? How often will you be doing these things?
Yeah, well, I hope to do more than one. Right now we're just kind of starting at one. And I'm not the only one within Peace Catalyst who can lead these. I have several colleagues who are also very well experienced within the context and have also led pilgrimages in the past.
Mm,
So I think that what we want to do is become like a go-to place where people can reach out to us. They can even put together a customized pilgrimage, ask us to help them work with them. Um, and so hopefully PCI will be able to have numerous pilgrimages going every year into the land. But again, the situation is volatile, so we have to, we make our plans and then we sometimes have to have patience because they don't always take place as quickly as we hoped, you
yeah,
know.
I can imagine it's a logistical challenge, shall we say?
Yes. Yes, but it is such a gift to come into the land. And every time I'm in there, I feel the privilege of it. And yeah, I would recommend if people are interested at all in doing something like this, reach out to us at Peace Catalyst or some other group if you have another one that you know that you trust, but get over there in a context where the past and the present are equally combined, or if anything, maybe more of the present, because that's the world that we live in. That's the world that Jesus lived in. When he was there, this is the world that he was concerned with. You know, you build the
Mhm.
tombs of the prophets, you're focused on all this stuff on the past, but open your eyes and look right now at the people who are
Mhm.
here. And I think that's always the orientation of the Lord. So we always want to err on that side, I think, any
Yeah.
place that we go, regardless of
Mhm.
how fascinating it might be, or other things that God might have to show us, from the learning curve of looking into the past.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about, um, I suppose, the more traditional Western evangelical thought about Israel and eschatology, things like that? We are I don't think it's unique to this time. I think it's actually been present in Western evangelical thought for a long time. This eschatological understanding of, God's going to restore Israel, and so we project the Israel that we see. I think many would say metaphorically in end times literature in the scriptures, and project that onto current political Israel, sort of a thing. My wife and I were walking through a Walmart recently. I heard an employee had somehow cornered this poor woman. He was in the middle of this passionate speech about how I think the line I walked in on was, Trump is God's man because he stands for Israel, and so Trump's been put on the throne, sort of a thing. I thought that's interesting language right there. But the woman he was speaking to, a customer, she's just poor lady. She got her. I don't know how she got herself into this conversation, and she couldn't seem to figure out how to get out of it. And I wasn't going to intervene. I was like, I don't know what to do here. I don't want to get into American politics today.
Yeah.
And honestly, I should say you teased me earlier. I happen to be wearing my Canadian jacket today, but it is not unique to America either. It just that's the context I'm in right now, because I live in this nation, and love this nation. And there are many, many people who are genuinely pursuing Jesus, but are influenced by this kind of more Western evangelical thought. This type of thought is very prevalent amongst a subset of the population. And this guy he was clearly repeating talking points he'd heard on some podcasts or things like that, right? I think we all understand that there is a bit of an echo chamber at times for some of this stuff, but just, I don't know, maybe do you have some advice for that poor lady in Walmart? And when you get into these conversations, you're like, I don't want to get into a whole thing, but I'd love to bring just a little gentle alternative point of view, not being combative or dismissive. How do we engage with compassion? Not only for the innocent Palestinians who've been affected by the injustice that continues in the region, but also compassion for the person that we're speaking to, who was made in the image of God and is probably earnestly trying to follow Jesus the best that they can. I don't know. How do we respond?
Okay, there's like so many points that I could answer as to what I might say to that eager young fellow. I might start with the recollection that eager young fellow was at one time me. There was a point in my life where I would have been that guy saying something along those lines with all the earnestness and love in my heart, all the zeal and earnestness and sincerity of my heart. So we have to first start with a position of respect where people are coming from. We have to assume that they have their best motives, and they're not trying to be, they're trying to help. They're trying to stand for what they think is right and what they think the Lord wants. When it comes to Israel and Palestine, I think one major problem is that people tend to look at modern peoples through these really simplified categories, especially when it comes to Israelis and Palestinians. Um, Categories that are overly simplified, that are reduced, and that are somewhat ahistorical, or can be ahistorical at times in the way that they're often presented and taught. Because when you actually go in and look at, like, the Second Temple Jewish world, for example, that Jesus lived in, it was a very diverse world. There were many, many different expressions of people who were following the God of the Bible at that time under this really broad umbrella that we call Judaism. And then to take this very broad, complex world, these ancestral categories in a way from which these modern positions have emerged, and try to superimpose something super simplified on top of it, it doesn't work. Like, I don't probably want to get more into it than that, but people can do research. Like, you can discover that Palestinians, for example, are also descended from that Second Temple world of Jewish people that were indigenous to the land and lived there. They've changed religions and language and things, but they're still the indigenous people of the land. And Jewish people are also descended from that group. So it's not like any one of these groups is the sole heir of the biblical story. as a lot of evangelical Christians try to make it or kind of read it in a simplified way.
Yeah, or
Another,
just assume, right? I mean, it's an easy assumption to make.
right.
Oh, they're different nations now. They do follow different religions, so they must be just completely separate. But what you're saying
Right.
is, if you trace it back to are you saying basically to the time of Jesus? Like, hey, you, at that point,
Yeah, I mean, you,
they're stemming from that same population, or at least maybe just
yes.
as you say, Second Temple period, maybe just in
Yeah.
the hundreds of years prior to that.
Even back further, Palestinians have a very long term um, presence, continuity in the land that is actually um, marked by like DNA studies, for example. Like these
Hmm.
people have been, they're not recent arrivals. These are people who are long-term indigenous to the land for thousands and thousands of years.
Hmm.
So clearly their ancestors will have included all the different kinds of people in the land. But in the time of Christ, the land was almost entirely, the majority population was the Jewish people, the Iudeos in Greek. And most of those people did not leave, like they remained in the land. And so Palestinians are as descended from them as modern Jews, maybe even more so. I mean, I don't want to get into an argument of who's more this or that because that's really
It's not
irrelevant.
the point. Yeah.
But the point is simply that you can't say that one group alone is the heir of all of these biblical promises if this is how you're still reading the Bible. I would argue that that's maybe not even the best way to read the Bible, but if this is how you're reading the Bible, you have to acknowledge that it's like a family tree, like with a trunk, and that's branched off. There's more than one branch that has come out of the trunk of this tree, and we need to treat all of the branches with the same respect. That's, I think, a good way to say it.
Hmm.
I would also just caution people as to looking at a political state, a modern political state, as though that is the same thing as what you're reading about in the Bible.
Yeah.
There's been thousands of years of progression and evolution and change that has taken place in the world. And just because something has the same name, like the word Israel, Am Yisrael means the people of Israel. And it was generally understood as like a covenantal designation of people who know God and walk with God in a covenantal way that is righteous and that pleases God. Like there's the union, like this is Am Yisrael. It's not an ethnicity. It's not, there were, even in the time of Christ, there were the different sects that argued with each other, like we're the Am Yisrael, we're Am Yisrael. It would just be like how we as Christians might say, I'm a real Christian. Are you born again?
Mm.
Like he's not
Yes.
really saved. Is this type of argument? It
Hmm.
wasn't like, yeah, it wasn't like this ethnic argument the way I think a lot of people might understand it today.
Yeah. I'm thinking even of it's so hard sometimes to put as we're reading the Gospels to take off our 21st century glasses, so to speak, and put on our first century Palestine glasses. But like I was thinking as I was reading Luke 13, I think it is this week, and somebody asked Jesus, like, well, who's going to be in the kingdom? Like, who's in and who's out? Is it going to be hard to get in? And Jesus responds with actually some really difficult words in terms of the narrow door. But he actually, again and again in Luke, he starts Luke. His first sermon in Luke 4, I think, is like this too, where he's indicating, no, people that you don't think are in, they
Yeah.
will absolutely be in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when he does that in Luke 4, he nearly gets himself thrown off a cliff because he very quickly pivots to stories from the Old Testament of people who were not traditional Hebrews, Jews
Yeah.
who were, found healing and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And gained attention from the Lord through the prophets and things like that. And so his message from the very beginning was, you, you're not as in as you think you are. That whole like, hey, yeah, I could make children of Israel out of these stones if I
Right.
wanted to. Like that's piece of cake. And so it was quite scandalous for Jesus to be making those claims from the very beginning of, oh, well, you think you're in, but actually those guys are probably going to end up being more in than you.
Right. Right. Yeah, Jesus said that kind of thing a lot. He said that kind of thing
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable to read sometimes. I'm doing this study right now of just reading some of the hard sayings of Jesus, and it has me squirming in my
Mm.
chair at 6 in the morning, going,
Ooh.
"Oh man, how do I how do I
Oh
understand
my
this?" And
gosh.
it's challenging. But again, one of the difficulties that I think we all just need to understand we have is reading the text in its original context and in its geopolitical context, even, right, and cultural context,
Yeah.
because their world was so different, and they were an occupied people, and they were waiting for a political savior, right? They're waiting for somebody, the Messiah they thought is somebody who's going to come and restore the kingdom as they've known it traditionally. And Jesus is like, well, yeah, but this is a totally different kingdom than you've ever known, and so much
Right.
better. But that
Yeah.
means it's going to have a very different way about it. And so the Jesus way is one of self-sacrifice, self-emptying. It's upside down, right? We use that phrase, the upside down kingdom, and it's a really helpful phrase. It's just
Yeah.
everything that you thought was up is down, and vice
Yeah.
versa. Um,
Yeah. It's inverted. I love that you're reading the hard sayings of Jesus right now. Like, as soon as you said that, I'm like, ooh, I think I want to do that. I think that it would be really helpful for all of us. Maybe I could just speak for North American Christians, but let's go back into those hard sayings of Jesus and let's try to meet him again. I think we're in dire need of a fresh encounter with Jesus,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and centering him again.
yeah,
Like where he finds himself in the Israel story is where I want to be,
yeah,
you know, where he is in this story and how he understands this story and how he affirms it and how he calls us to walk into it. That's the only thing that matters for me as a Christian.
yeah.
And it is to that that we must be faithful. And it is before him that we will be judged on that criteria. And I think we need to remember these things more with a little bit more fear and trembling in our hearts.
Yeah, I think the challenge too is, as I said, to when you read it, the your at first blush, you read it and you have some assumptions that click, and everything clicks into place. Like, oh yes, I know exactly what this means. I know what he's talking about. I know where this fits into the grand narrative eschatologically. But actually, to stop and go, well, what if it doesn't mean that, or what if
Right.
Jesus was speaking before we had any of these, you know. Assumptions, but the book
Yeah.
of Revelation was not going to be written for a long time yet. Like, what, when he was speaking to this person on that road, what was the message he was really trying to convey in that
Right.
context? And it's really hard to do. um
Yeah.
so yeah, and you know what, I would encourage you, find some friends who think differently from you, or every once in a while say something outrageous, and go ask them and be like, I don't know, I'm reading this and my mind automatically assumes this, what do you think, and stuff, and just have some good conversations, because I think
Mm-hmm.
uh you know, listeners of this podcast will know one of my least favorite phrases is, well, the Bible clearly says, because I
Right.
would contend that the Bible doesn't clearly say much of anything.
Yeah.
Actually, more often than not, it's just, you really got to wrestle with the text.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's good, holy work to do. Wrestle with the text, seek the Holy Spirit as you do it, and then talk about it with some friends and see as the Holy Spirit guides that conversation.
Yeah. That's good. I love that. And I think also, even if even if you think people may not have the conclusion that you have or whatever, it is still good, I think, to get in these conversations as believers because we're so siloed off now into all of our little camps. I mean,
Yes.
social media has done this. The political thing has exacerbated this tremendously. In fact, I would say the political thing is probably more problematic even, but we're so siloed off now, we don't even know how to have
Yeah.
good conversations where we're just like, I don't know, like, gosh, I wish we could just start over again in a way, like erase
Mm-hmm.
all of this stuff and let's just come
Just
to the text together
yeah,
in a fresh
yeah,
way without all of this baggage of, well,
Hmm.
my political group or denomination says this, so I already know what my stance is, or I know how to read this verse. I think
Yeah.
we need to be unsettled and confronted and wrestle, as you said.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
We
one of the
just,
things that our
it,
Jewish
I
brothers
wish
and
we could just
sisters are,
delete all these algorithms.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But this whole, I'm thinking of like the way that Jewish people would traditionally come together and study the scripture. There would be arguings and just sitting around and talking about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And and you can disagree even violently, but respect each other still because we love
Hmm.
this text and we're
Yeah.
here to collectively, I'm not here doing this just on my own. We're doing this together. And
Yeah.
I think it would be so beneficial if we could have more of that. So
Mm.
yeah, thank you for suggesting that, Tim.
Yeah. That's good. Um, we I would be remiss if I didn't at least give you an opportunity to give us an update on what's going on in Gaza. For those who don't know, Mercy's a strategic partner for Impact Nations. We're working together to continue to bring relief to those affected by the war in Gaza. And kind of no matter where you lie on that politically, I think we can all recognize that when war strikes, there are families that are caught in the middle who have no recourse and find themselves in grave danger. Um, Mercy, you and I recently got to spend some time on the phone with our mutual friend who is facilitating our work in Gaza. And I was once again reminded just that the need is still very, very urgent. Um, there are I don't know. It seems to me like I haven't seen as much talk about the war in Gaza recently in the media and things like that. Maybe that's my algorithm just not feeding it to me anymore. I don't know. But when we were in that call, you mentioned something about this yellow line that's like dividing the territory right now. Do you want to just talk to us a little bit about kind of the current situation as you understand it?
Yeah, sure. And I will preface this by saying I've had to take a little bit of a break from following this so closely because I have so many other things I'm doing right now, and sometimes you just need to take a little break. But the last report that I looked at showed this map of the yellow line, which is the line that the Israeli military is holding in Gaza, and it's about half of Gaza now is space that Palestinians can no longer go into. So they are
Mm,
shoved to the coast of Gaza, and the border, where Gaza used to come up against Israel, like that buffer zone, is now takes about half of all of Gaza. So you think about Gaza already being one of the most crowded places on the face of the earth prior to what we have seen since October 7th. And it was already like, where do you go to get away from people? I'm just trying to imagine now, you know, virtually almost the same population. Yes, a lot of people have been killed and some people have gotten out, but we're still looking at roughly 2 million people crammed in a place that was half of what they once had,
yeah.
living in the middle of rubble, in the middle of complete destruction, of very few things functioning at all, in the cold winter weather, under the fatigue of over 2 years now since this genocidal war. And I will use that word. I know it's controversial, or some people want it to be controversial, but when virtually all human rights and genocide studies organizations, including Holocaust genocide studies organizations, have called this a genocide, you can go to Wikipedia and look at the list of all the organizations that have now characterized this as genocide. It's over 100. So I don't think it should be super controversial to use that term.
Hmm.
Um, since this genocide began, I mean, you've got people who are emotionally, mentally, physically, in every way completely fatigued and that have been living under high stress and low, nutrition, like anything that will fortify you, spirit, soul, or body. I
Yeah.
can't imagine what they're experiencing right now. It's so painful
Yeah.
to
Uh,
fathom the absolute desperation and and probably very hopeless feeling that many of them are having because there has not been an end in sight, even though there was a so-called ceasefire. Palestinians are still being killed every day or dying every day. And certainly the amount of humanitarian aid that was negotiated for the ceasefire, there were supposed to be about 600 trucks coming in a day. Um, the people in Gaza and the human rights organizations are saying it's only a little over 100 trucks that are coming in a day. So that shows you the acute need because virtually everything now has to be brought in. There's very little
Yeah.
in Gaza. There's
Yeah.
even to grow food. There's very little place where you could even do that. And the soil is toxic, very toxic in many places.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is dangerous. The violence continues. My understanding is if you get too close to that yellow line, it's effectively there's a buffer of about 300 meters or so, and if you get within that 300 meters, there's a good chance that you're going to be
You'll be
fired upon.
sniped.
Yeah.
Yes. And a lot of people early on didn't even know where these lines were, which is why
Mm.
you often hear about children collecting firewood, for example, who were sniped and killed. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And my understanding is that a lot of the what was left of healthcare opportunities are now on the wrong side of that yellow line, and so there's very very little access to healthcare, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there are tens of thousands of people who are actually in grave danger just because they're critically ill, and there's no
Yes.
access to medicine.
Yeah. There's far less than half, I think maybe 14 hospitals left in Gaza that have somewhat functioning ability. None of them are fully functioning.
Yeah,
So you'll get various, none of them are going to have all the medicine that's needed. None of them are going to have, the services that are needed. And, but they can do something, so there is some moderate functioning, but acute lack of supplies. We're hearing about different diseases now that are just going through Gaza. Um, and there's not a lot that can be done
yeah.
because the
Yeah, apparently
supplies
the
aren't being
rat
allotted.
population is way out of control too, which is, so the rats are
Yes,
carrying
rats.
massive disease as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a bad situation, and sadly, it's not. We're not hearing as much about it, and this happens, right? I think it's just human nature. We even the the human outpouring of grief and empathy and charity is there at the beginning, and then it wanes because people move on. I don't fault them for that. It just is what it is. But the media
Yeah.
moves on and things like that, and yet these
Yeah.
things continue, kind of in the shadows, or the problem is long since forgotten. But the good news is we've got friends who are there on the ground,
Yes.
still doing the stuff, and we just sent another wire transfer for thousands more meals just last week or earlier this week. We're doing it every single month. More funding getting in. One of the questions that I regularly get, Mercy, I'm sure you do too, is, but aren't I heard Hamas is getting all the aid, and so aren't you just feeding the terrorists, sort of a thing? Well, um, everything Impact Nations does, and this is what I love about what we're doing in Gaza, because it's just so in line with the heart of Impact Nations, which is to partner with local leaders who were already doing great stuff, and we just come alongside and say, hey, how can we help you do more of that? We love that. And going to places where others aren't going or can't go, rather than just doing what every other aid organization is doing, but trying to go to the places that have been forgotten or are just really really hard to get to. And man, Gaza is just right in the middle, right in the bullseye there for us. What an incredible opportunity to have come alongside these many believers who have been following Christ for many years now, and just love to demonstrate the love of Jesus and compassion to those in desperate needs. We are going we're purchasing food from local suppliers. I mean, it's amazing that there's still a little bit of that left, but there is. The borders, as you said, they had opened it up. They were supposed to open it up for more aid, but then choked it right back down again. But commerce is getting through, I understand. So there's still some food and supplies available for purchase, and so that's how we're doing it. We're just buying it from
Yep.
what would have been grocery stores and have long since bombed
Yep.
out, and it's basically just some folks setting up stalls at the side of the road. But um,
Hmm.
and and then we get to go just grassroots from tent to tent with bags of groceries, every once in a while prepared meals, and just spend time being with people. There's so much need, there again, Impact Nations is all about meeting both the practical and the spiritual needs, right? And the need of just the hearts of these people in terms of just knowing that there's somebody who sees them and loves them and cares for them and is there to just listen and weep with them. That's vital as well, isn't it?
So much. Yeah, I love that our team on the ground delivers more than food. I mean, you have to think our team on the ground has lived through everything that everyone else has lived through.
Yeah.
So they're not coming in all rested and prepped to
Yeah.
you know, but nevertheless within the opportunity that they have to distribute food, we've heard from them that it has been like a healing thing for them that's kind of given continued to give them hope also during the
Yeah.
course of this war, and and to be able, yeah, to share the love of God, just in a very basic way for people who are saying, "Are you still there, God? Like, do you
Yeah.
care? Do you see? Where are you?" And to be able to just affirm God, to be able to affirm the love and presence of God through something so practical. I don't think there's much more. There's very few things that are as beautiful as that to me.
Yeah.
Like in our place of our most acute need at the moment and our desperation to have the answer provided for us within the context that, yes, I'm here, that
Mm.
God is speaking that is, it almost brings tears to my eyes right now, just thinking about that.
Yeah. Um, you and I, when we were on the call with our friend the other day, learned of a new need, but also an opportunity that comes with that need to meet the need, which I'm really, really excited about. It's heartbreaking that the need is there, but I'm excited that we get to be an answer to that, which is housing. You alluded to it earlier. Their homes have been bombed out. There's, you know, entire city blocks just gone, and so we've got the opportunity to help with that. We've all seen the tent cities, right? They're living in these tent cities, these large white tents. If you've seen any of the photos, we're not able to release a ton of photos out of the region with our team, partly just for their safety. It's just we don't even want to give away their location too clearly. So, but when we do provide some photos, you'll typically see children receiving those blue grocery bags, standing in front of these white tents. And we had seen when the ceasefire was initially announced. I know there was some flyover photos and videos that we were able to see the size of some of these tent cities. I mean, they're huge, just in the clearings. We know of other people that I was just reading today, are living in kind of the lower level, the ground floor of bombed out apartment buildings that are not in any way weatherproof, but they're also actually, buildings are still crumbling, and it's not even a safe place to be because there's concrete that could be falling down from above them at any
Yeah.
moment. So the housing situation is really, really bad. Well, those tent cities, it's been a few years now since they went up, and some of the tents are just falling apart, right? They're in
Oh yeah.
disrepair. We've got images of them just having fully collapsed. They're trying to
Yeah.
patch them up. It's getting cold
Yeah.
too. I don't know. I think maybe people don't know that it does get pretty cold at this time of year in winter in
Yeah.
that region. I recently heard 11 kids have died from hypothermia.
Yeah.
So just being exposed to the elements is a real danger. Um,
Yes.
but we've got an opportunity today. Actually, I think the email is just going out today to be able to provide a winter safety package, I think we're calling it, which has a tent that should house up to 10 people, brand new tent, and it'll include warm blankets, basic toiletries, I think about 3 weeks worth of groceries. And I love what you just said, Mercy, that it is also quite literally an answer to prayer for some folks who maybe really have reached that point of like, God, are you even there? Are you listening? Do you know that I'm here, that I'm struggling? And can you imagine a team showing up with a brand new tent and warm blankets and some soap and groceries. Like, just what a message from the heavens that would be.
Yeah.
What an answer
Yeah.
to prayer.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. I am too. I love that it's like a whole package that we are going to provide for families now with a tent, food, sanitary supplies. I mean, this is something that we've kind of, I think, with in light of everything else that's going on, it's like some of these people haven't been able to even like wash their hair for like
Yes.
2 years,
Yeah.
or bathe properly. And they haven't had a lot of people haven't had access or enough. Like maybe they have one bar of soap, they have to share it, they have to make it last indefinitely amongst, a very large extended family. So that we're able to provide just some of these basic things like that. And I will also say, like the tents, not everyone even had those nice white tents. A lot of people just had things that were pieced together from pieces of plastic and blankets and things like that. People's tents were being destroyed, have been destroyed. I think some of these people have moved from tent to tent to tent after their
Mm,
home was bombed
yeah.
because the tents were also being bombed. I mean, we heard the stories of people burning alive in the melting plastic of bombed tents,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, that this these just didn't happen every once in a while. Like this happened.
Yeah.
Um, Tents being destroyed, bombed, harsh winds, even water, like the people that have had to pitch their tent right next to the ocean because there's nowhere else. Because again, it's so crowded, there's nowhere
Yeah.
else to pitch your tent. So some of these people have to pitch it right by the ocean. And if a storm or, the tide rolls in way farther than normal, you're going to be engulfed with cold seawater in the middle of the night,
Oh, yeah.
with the
Yeah,
wind
actually,
blowing.
I just read that 100 or no 1,000 homes, and I don't know what they mean by homes anymore, but were evacuated on the coast because of high tides or whatever, and they just were getting flooded every single day, and so they had to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. So the situation is just beyond desperate.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
beyond desperate. And the feeling that many people probably are experiencing in Gaza, which is the world has kind of moved on. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of things to occupy our attention right now, and all of them, most all of them, quite troubling.
yeah,
And we only have so much emotional energy to
yeah,
expend. Um, but I know that God has called some people in faithfulness to Gaza or to the situation in the Holy Land, if you even want to put it broader, to all the people there. I don't like to speak in terms that make it sound too polarized because, again, Jesus loves all of those people. All of these people need divine intervention in different ways
yeah,
in the land. But people who are called to faithfulness to this area, um, I just pray that, and I say this to myself too, that we would feel the fresh movement to continue to give into this and to continue to hope and advocate for this because this situation could have a lot of different outcomes right now, the way we're
yeah,
looking at what might happen there. And we really need to be praying and advocating and doing what we can to support that outcomes that are going to be most helpful and just for everybody, uh, everybody, especially the people of Gaza. I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, so if you're hearing that and you say, I want to be one of the faithful ones, and I think that we all at times reach places of feeling helpless, like, my heart breaks for them, but I don't know what to do. Well, the wonderful thing is that today I'm telling you, there's something you can do. Please give. I will include a link in the comments here, or whatever, in the notes, but impactnations.com/relief Gaza. For $600, that's it. You can provide a tent that is going to protect people from the elements. You can provide warm blankets. You can provide basic toiletries and 2 to 3 weeks of groceries for like 10 people in that space for $600. Are you kidding me? Where else could you do this? This is amazing.
yeah,
My promise to you is that as those funds come in, we expect that they will come in quickly in the next couple of weeks. We're going to get those out to the region right away so that they can start buying tents.
Yeah.
But we need your help to do it because, in all honesty, it has slowed down a little bit.
Hmm.
Again, I understand it, but we've got a very acute need right now. It is winter, folks. It is
Yeah.
cold over there.
Yeah.
Children are dying of hypothermia, and we can fix that. We collectively, as a community, have an opportunity to meet their needs. And if you need a little motivation, just go read Matthew 25.
That's right. I heard Munther Isaac, he's kind of a well-known Palestinian minister now. Like you'll see him a lot he did a sermon on Christ in the Rubble a few years ago that really went viral. But I was listening to Munther recently, and he was like, I wish people talk about taking the Bible literally. I wish people would take Matthew 25 literally. Like, why don't we go to Matthew 25 and take this really literally? And he wasn't joking. I mean, he was serious
Yeah,
on it.
yeah,
And I was like, yeah,
mm,
yeah. That
yeah,
goes back to the unsettling Jesus, the one
yes,
who unsettles us.
yeah,
We need that Jesus in our lives. That Jesus can save us,
mm, yes, so good.
not our construct, you know.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
not, yeah, not gentle Jesus, meek and mild.
Mm.
Um, all right, so if you're hearing this again, we'll provide the link or impactnations.com/relief-Gaza. Um, I don't know. Maybe you don't have $600. Maybe you got $60. I said $600 will provide a tent and warm blankets, basic toiletries, and 3 weeks worth of groceries for 10 people. So maybe you have $60. That's one person who will get to be a part of that package. So please consider prayerfully right now, what can you give? And let's do this thing together. Mercy, I'm so grateful to you for having been a friend to Impact Nations for so long, to be a friend of this podcast, but also for getting us these connections so that this is possible, because it wouldn't have been possible without your introductions, without your connections in the region. And I love that I can say with confidence to people, hey, I know this is working. It's happening. It's real. I'm so grateful for your facilitation of that.
Well, I'm grateful for your facilitation on your end. I just think it's beautiful how the Lord brought us together for this
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
Um, it's like all of the parts have their unique role, and it was the Lord who brought it together. So thank you, Lord.
Absolutely. Now, another call to action is just for people to be cheering you on and following you on your upcoming adventures. Is there a good place to do that? Are you big on the social media, or is there a website people can follow? What's the best way to keep up to date with Mercy Aiken? And even I know you have raised support, but I'm sure there's always needs for that. If that's something that somebody's hearing today and wants to get involved in, how do they best do that?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. Yeah, people can follow me on Facebook. I haven't been very active there lately, and Substack. I've not been very active there lately. I've just been too focused on other things. But um, those are generally places where I write my thoughts and often take time to share things kind of uniquely from how I'm seeing or hearing it from the Lord or experiences. So those are the two best places to follow me. You can learn a little bit more about what we're doing at Peace Catalyst if you go to peacecatalyst.org. And there is a drop-down menu for team, and you can find me there. And if you would like to support my ministry there, I am still in fundraising mode right now. So that would be also very much appreciated.
Awesome. We will provide some links to that as well in the notes on this episode. Mercy, how soon do you leave for Jordan?
I'm leaving on February 22nd.
February 22nd. All right. We will be praying for all those last minute details to fall into place and for safe travels
Thank you.
and
Thank you
just
so
grace and
much.
peace in the process.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
being with us today. I just so appreciate this. This has been a blast. I know our listeners will have enjoyed it very much. Folks, please engage in the comments. Leave us a note. If you're listening on the audio podcast, don't forget there's that little send us a message button or something like that we've now built into our audio podcast, so you can actually just send us a little note. Let us know what you're thinking. Even if we made you really mad today, we'd love to hear it.
Yes.
We would love to engage with you on that. Folks, this is the Impact Nations podcast, and we love talking about these sorts of things. It's talking about the hard things, the beautiful things, so we'd love to have you join us every single week. We're here every Thursday on YouTube or on any of your favorite podcast apps. Follow along, hit the subscribe button so you get it delivered every week to your device. And we will see you again next week for that episode that was supposed to be this week, but is going to be next week. And it's great. We're talking all about some absolute financial miracles that have been seen as people are looking to raise money to engage their families in going into the mission field. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So tune in for that next week. In the meantime, have a great and blessed week. Thanks so much. God bless. Bye-bye.